If you don't participate, there's a difference between a B- and a C+. Does anybody know how much of a difference that is? Maybe 2 or 3 points. If you actually participate in class, you could make the difference between the B- and the C+. When I started freshman year, it was right after high school. I actually started in June. I graduated in May. I started college in June. Because I figured I had nothing else to do. I had just quit my McDonald's job. And I said, you know what, I need to go to college. Why? Why? Why did I go to college? Let me tell you something. I worked 1 day a week at McDonald's. On Sunday, between 9 and 3 p.m., I had to walk to and back from work. Between 9 and 3, as the youngest person and the last hired, I had to cook all of the meats and all of the eggs. I do not like eggs as I'm lactose intolerant. Okay? A time came when I realized I can do better. So I had some people who were there who had been there longer than I had, and I said, can you teach me how to make sandwiches? We're talking about progression. Okay? They taught me how to make sandwiches. A day came when somebody got hired after me. I knew how to do sandwiches. So I let them do the meat and the eggs. I was now going up to a different level. But in order for me to go to college, I had to let go of something, and that was going to be McDonald's. Still talking about focus. Okay? I knew I had to escape from this McDonald's syndrome that was 1 day a week. My feet were killing me. I made little to no money, and I wanted more. So I started college. So I went from $5.15 to my college job of $6.15. I've now gone up a whole $1. I started going to college and I started focusing. Focusing meaning I had to get rid of distractions. I came into college with no high school friends. I came into college with no high school friends. So when I came in, I knew that I was still at home with my parents, so I did have that focus established. But at the same token, I had to have internal focus to actually get the job done. I started college my first year, did very well. Did very well. Focused. And I still had a part-time job. I started out at the community college because my parents could not afford to send us to a 4-year university. I started and I finished. I started and I finished. In every focusing aspect that you have, you should have a mode to start and finish. You may have to finish alone. I mentioned that when I started college, I had no high school friends who went to college with me. Why? Because when you're trying to go to the next level, you're going to lose some people. When you go to the next level, or you're trying to go to the next level, you're going to lose some people. Number 1 aspect in life, be on time. Be on time. When I got here, I was here on time. Why? I had time to get here. I knew when I needed to be here, and I didn't want to be late. I'm looking at 2 very different clocks, and I do not want to be late. Why? Because this is an appointment. My parents taught me nobody has to give you anything. If you do have an appointment, you need to be on time. So when you come into anything late, people begin to think differently of you. Why? Because if you're always late, you may not get the job done. And if you're always late, you may not put in 100% like the next person who came on time. Bachelor's degree. I started my bachelor's degree saying I wanted to be a mathematician. I want to do this thing for life. Did I know what I was signing up for? Not at all. But I knew I had 2 years to do it. I went off to a private school, which later cost me in excess of $40,000. I went to a private school for 5 semesters. It cost me $40,000. I get a bill from them every month. $40,000 that I have to pay, not my parents, not my friends, me. So when I came out of school, I knew I needed to finish school because if I didn't finish school, I wouldn't be able to pay back my loans. I started and I finished my bachelor's degree. Was it hard? It was very hard. I did a major in math. I don't think it's anything harder than that. But I knew I had to do it, and I knew I had to do it well. Then I started looking online. What does it take to do this? When it comes to your career, you got to think about what does it take to do your career? Whatever it takes. If it takes a bachelor's, come in with a master's. If it takes a master's, come in with a PhD. Why? Everybody loves a high salary. Everybody loves it. Because high salaries, you can do things with it. But there's a progression. When I I realized what it took to be this in 2004 when I graduated. I said, I only need a master's. That was 2004. This is 12 years later. In 2004, it only took a master's to do this. So I said, I only have a year left. Let me go for my master's. I went for my master's at Wayne State University in Detroit, still talking about focus. Still talking about focus. I came in, wanted to be a teacher. Somehow the university lost my paperwork, so I had to start all over again. I've now lost one semester. One. But I still got to keep the train rolling. I'm not going home because I'm already here. I switched majors. And I put the rush on myself. I got 3 semesters to do this. Why? Because I'm here with my sister who's finishing in 3 semesters. I want to finish with her. Did I do it? Of course I did. Of course. Focus. When you're trying to go for a particular effort, you have to do it in the time that you're allowed. Could I have taken longer? Of course. It would have cost me more money. After finishing my master's degree, this is the switch that occurs in academia. By 2007, the standards had now changed. I no longer needed a master's, I needed a PhD. I'm still trying to do this thing called math. I'm still trying to teach students like you. Now I need a PhD. You get 2 options. You can quit. You can be an adjunct at a college or university, which is part-time, no more than 2 or 3 classes, no insurance, no full-time pay. Or you can go back and invest in yourself another 5 years, because you've already done 5 years, to get a PhD. Focus. Focus. When it comes to doctoral studies, you will more than likely be in the minority. When I came into doctoral studies at UK, mind you, I said at UK. When I came into doctoral studies at UK, before I got there, I knew how much it would take to get a PhD. I calculated it because that's what mathematicians do. It took $100,000 for me to do year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I said, well, I don't have none of that. At all. Still trying to get a PhD to do this thing here at this university. So I thought about it. I said, I got a plan. I went online and did some research. How did other people get their PhDs? Did they have $100,000 to do it? I read so many articles on how so many people said we waited until the last minute. We waited until the last minute to see what the university offered for us. I said, I'm going to try that. So I waited. Email after email. UK told me we don't have it. We don't have it. And then I thought about it. Y'all building up this building and that building. And now I'm going to go to UK for my PhD. A week before school started, this is still talking about focus and preparation. When you don't check your emails, you get the latest end of the stick. You may not get any of that stick, okay? During that week before school started, I was checking my email religiously because I knew when I had faith that I would go to UK and finish. All I needed was the money. A week before school started, I was preparing. My sister was actually preparing to go to the University of Memphis. She had already got her paperwork for a ride. I said, I know that there's something in there for me. I checked my email. UK now has all the money that I need to get prepared. Still talking about focus. Once I got the money, it's time for me to get a car. I realized I had $3,000 saved. I'm probably going to spend all $3,000 of that to get a car. I got the car. After getting the car, I realized I didn't have enough money. I still got to get insurance. So I had to get insurance. Mind you, I said I had to use my $3,000. My father dropped me off and said, when I get back, you will have a car. He did not leave me with a blank check. He said, when I get back, you will have a car because it's your $3,000 you're going to spend. I got a car. Well, you can get here in a car, but you still need a place to live. I had to get an apartment. Still talking about my money. I had to get an apartment. When I got here, I realized I had enough for 1 month, and I still had to spend it for another month because you still had that first and second month's rent. So I now have a car. I now have rent. I now have rent. When I got to UK, they told me they'd pay me $9 an hour. $9 an hour. I got to pay rent. I still got to pay for a car. And insurance. Still talking about focus. When you're coming in with that amount of expenses, as a student, you have to be focused. Why? Because if you're not careful, you're going to run out of money. So not only did I have one job, I now had to have 2. So I'm now a doctoral student at UK. I'm still working there, and I'm teaching online because I still have to pay bills. When you think about what you want to do, bills surround all of that. It will not come easy. Even if you stay at home with your parents the whole time, you're going to have to pay them something because you're occupying a space. Parents do not have to let you live with them just because you're their kid. When I lived with my parents, I paid them $200 a month. I contributed on groceries. When house taxes came, we split that thing 4 ways because there were 4 people living in that house. Responsibility goes along with focus. I spent 5 years at UK, being the only African American in all of my classes. Did I feel alone? Of course. But thinking about focus, I knew what I was there for. All of my professors, when I went to class, every one of them had a doctorate. Not some, not many, every one of them. And I said, if I want to be like them, I need to put in the work so that one day somebody can call me Dr. Davis. What is your focus? As freshmen, how do you plan to get there? The friends that you have, are they going your direction? Are they actually discussing ideas, or are they just discussing people? People who discuss people don't go very far. People who discuss ideas can go a lot of places. While I was at UK, I started discussing ideas. And those ideas started to turn, and I said, I want to go places. I started looking at where my professors were traveling. I had a professor, Dr. Gus, the best professor I've ever had. I actually researched him quite often, and his resume is 108 pages. Not 2, not 6, 108. One day we were supposed to have class, still talking about focus. And I was preparing my dissertation platform because I wanted him to see it. I got an email, class is canceled. I'm in China. I said, are you serious? How'd he get to China? No, really, he was in China. I looked on Twitter. He was in China. So he left UK to go to China because somebody invited him. I said, well, I got to get my stuff together because I want somebody to invite me somewhere. But who is he? He's Dr. Gusky. He's not Mr. Gusky, he's Dr. Gusky. So everywhere he goes, people call him Dr. Gusky. And after I took his class, I felt even more motivated because I said, I really got to finish now. I'm looking at his resume, and I know I got a long way to go. In your focus, when you want to be like somebody, look at the resume. How long is that resume? What are they doing that you now need to do? Upon graduation, I realized I needed a job. I graduated from UK in May. Everybody looking for a job in May. Everybody's looking for a job because many people graduate in May. I was looking for a job in March. I hadn't even defended I was looking for a job in March. I knew in May my UK check would cut off. Remember, I still said I have bills. I have bills. By the time I graduated, my first car broke down. I now have to sign for another car loan. Car loan that still needs to be paid. By now, I'm now working 3 jobs. 3. Because I'm attempting to pay for all of these expenses that have now become mine. None of those expenses were expensive clothes, expensive shoes. These were books, car loan, rent, and other bills. This is responsibility. I did not ask my parents for a single dime because this is an adult life. I have to pay for all these things. I applied for a job here. I still currently have that job. But, in life, whatever you want, you have to seek higher than what you currently have. When I got here, I said, I want to see who's been here the longest and where are they going on these trips. I got here and found out about KBHE. Okay, no problem, that's Kentucky. I want to go. I want to meet some of the other minorities in the field and what they're doing because I want to do it too. And I said, I got to think a little bit higher. What else? One of my colleagues went to Hawaii. He went to Hawaii in December of 2015. And I said, really? Remember, the people you hang around, they should be able to grow you. Grow you. If they're not growing you, why are you there? If they're not growing you, why are you there? My colleague told me he was going to Hawaii. I immediately set it in my mind, a year from now, I'll be there too. Didn't have the money. Didn't know where it's coming from. I'll be there in 12 months, because in 12 months, I'll have $2,000 in some kind of way. It costs $2,000 to get there. Between registration, between flight, between hotel, that's $2,000. And I was determined. I work here for EKU. I'm not using any of my money. I work for them. And my assumption is that they're going to send me. I can assume all I want, but until I put in the work to go get the money, there's no money. There's no money. So January comes and I went to work. Who has money here and who has money there? I knew I'd get $600 for being a faculty member. I'm down to $1,400. Still not trying to spend my money. Let me keep searching. I went to the diversity office, asked them for $1,100. Got the $1,100. I'm now down to $300. I went to my chair and asked them for $300. The trip is paid for. You have to know who is doing what at the university. That's how you can find out how you can go on your trips and have it paid for. So then after a while, once I got to Hawaii, I said, you know what? I really haven't had to pay anything. I think I should pay for something. I got me a Mercedes shuttle. Why? Because that's what the big wigs do. See, when they come in, they don't ride a shuttle. They ride in somebody's Mercedes shuttle. I said, I want a Mercedes shuttle. So for $179, they picked me up from the airport and rolled me in style to my hotel. Still talking about focus. When you have the money to do what you need to do, you can also spend something on yourself. That was January of this year. I said in mind, I'm going back. Same plan. Same plan. I came back November of this year and I asked my department admin assistant, how much do I have to spend? She said $1,800. Ooh. I said, okay. I said, I'm going to do my best to try to max out this whole thing. Remember, this is not my money. This is my professional development money that I have raised throughout the year. 2 days ago, we booked the trip. $1,778. So in January, when everybody has on winter coats, during that first week, I'm going to be in Hawaii with sandals on. Okay? We're talking about focus. When you think about that story that I just told you, it was a 10-year story. I have condensed it for you all. It was a 10-year story. It took 4 years to do a bachelor's. It actually took 4.5. It took 1.5 years to do a master's. That's 6 years. It took 5 total years at UK to do a doctorate. 5. That's 11 years. Investment. Investment. When you think about what you want to do in life, ask yourself, how much time is it going to take? And it's unfortunate, but sometimes when you think about your investment, you may not be able to tell your friends. Because some friends may say, that's too long. 11 years, I can't do that. I want to do something else in 5. Let me tell you something. You want to have the best out of life, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to work for it. In the 10 years that I've been here, my parents have never paid a bill for me. They've never paid rent. They have offered to pay gas when I go back and forth to their home. It's still there when they get home because I'm an adult. I need to be paying my own bills. There are things that I had to learn. One thing I went without that you all enjoy is cable. I went without cable for about 7 years. As a student, there are luxuries that you cannot afford on a certain budget. I couldn't afford it. Last night, I thought about what do I want for Christmas? I always think of one thing that I want because I've no longer become extravagant with all these different things I need to buy. I said, I want a TV. Mind you, I've gone without cable for 7 years. 7. I said, I want a TV. I calculated how much that TV is going to cost with everything else that I still have to pay for. I said, okay, I can afford a TV. I want some cable too. After 7 years of going without cable, I've never had cable since I've lived in Kentucky. As of Friday, I would have cable. Priorities. Priorities. When you think about your bills and you include your future student loans, which will be due when you graduate, you can play a game with those people and I can guarantee you they'll take it out of your check. Oh, I'm very serious. As a human, especially a human with a Social Security card, you can always be found. If you do not pay them the voluntary way, they'll contact your supervisor, and they will make sure that that's taken out of your check without your permission. If you're taking out any type of loans, be mindful of your studies. As instructors, we do midterm grades. All that goes back to your company, whether you're in class or whether you're not in class. Everybody's keeping tabs on everybody. You want to know why? This money's not free. The generation after you has to go to college. And if you mess it up, they don't get to go. I mentioned to you about my $40,000 loan. Do you know that over the span of 12 years, it became 50? We're talking about interest here. We're talking about $50,000 that one person has to pay with no help. No help. I mentioned to you that for a while I worked 3 jobs. As of January, starting year 13, I'll be done. It took 13 years to pay $50,000. What I'm telling you is this game of life is not a game. If you're in school for any type of reason, you have to have a focus. If you do not have a focus, it's easy to get into college. It is very, very easy to slide right out the door. There's a lot of people who want your spot. A lot of people. If you're not serious about your education, if you're not serious about who's in your friend circle, who's actually going up, it's going to take a long while to get up. Going back to friends, when I started my PhD, by then I had just my family. I had no friends. Facebook friends don't count. Let's keep it real. That doesn't count. I had no friends going into PhD study because nobody had done it. I went into PhD study with my sister at 2 different schools. That was my benchmark. I'm keeping up with my sister. I'm keeping up with her. Because we're doing this thing that we've never done, and we're doing it at the same time at 2 different schools. The people you're hanging around, if they're not focus-minded, if they're not college-minded, it's going to be very hard for you to stay around them and finish. If their mind is not on 5-year plans, which you actually do need to make, if your mind is not on 5-year plans, you need to reevaluate your friend system. Remember, I just said that coming into doctoral study, I had 0 friends. 0 friends. While I was in doctoral study, I made a new friend, who I'm still friends with to this day, and guess what she has? A doctor. Same goals. When you have people that are around you with the same goals, you have no choice but to go up. Now, if you don't want to go up, that's a different story. As of next week, I will be out of town for the entire weekend because now my sister's done. She's finishing her doctorate. So in my family, we've been a rotating circle of graduations. She's the last one to finish with a PhD. So now I can call her Dr. Davis, so she can call me Dr. Davis too. Okay? It's a thing called life. And if you want to get to the top, look at who's doing it. Remember I said by Professor Dr. Tom Gusky, his resume was 108, it's now 130. Continually working. Okay? Whatever you want to do in life, look and see who's doing it. How are they doing it? Who is in their friend circle? And how can you do it too? When you think about people like Bill Gates, do you think Bill Gates hung around a whole lot of people who didn't have goals? Not at all. Does he have a degree? Not at all. The point is, he had enough business sense to start a company that we have to buy into, and he has profit from it. Every year, there's no question that he will have a profit. Why? He was focused. He had friends who were focused. He had family that was focused. Could he go and get a degree? Of course. He has plenty of honorary degrees. Every time he goes to a university to do a graduation speech, he gets an honorary degree. Tyler Perry, he does not have a degree, but he is a millionaire. He took an idea, made it his own, and took off with it. President Obama, he may not be a millionaire, but he was the president. Okay? Think about who's the top in your industry. Who's the top in your industry? My dissertation advisor was the top in the industry. That's why I chose him. It's all in who you choose. And in choosing my dissertation advisor, I did not know that I would have many sleepless nights. He would email me at 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. So by the time I got up, I had work to do. Even when I finished, I wondered, now what am I going to do with my life? Because he's not going to email me at 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. anymore. I had done the work I was supposed to do. So in your careers, whatever you choose to do as it relates to focus, begin reevaluating your decisions. Because you notice in my entire story, I had bills the whole time. I still have bills. Before I came here, I had to adjust the amount that I'm now going to pay Time Warner. Because if I don't adjust that amount, I won't have cable for very long. Okay? Think about your bills. Don't make a lot of unnecessary bills as college students. Don't get into the game of credit cards. You'll be owing them for life. Find ways to enterprise yourself. If you need to take on a second job, make it very minimal, because your focus here is college. Your focus is to finish. As young people, you are the future. After my generation dies off, because we probably will, as my generation dies off, you're next. So which of you is going to be the next president? Which of you is going to be the next people to be CEO of a company? Which of you is going to be CEO of the Social Security Administration? Because we will need that. Okay? Think about what you're doing. Think about how you're doing it and who you're doing it with. Lastly, I want to make a focus on this. Your focus in college should not be to get pregnant or to get somebody pregnant. Can I just speak on that real quick? Can I speak on
Actually, what? To get pregnant?
Not to get pregnant. And not to get somebody pregnant. Here's the thing with college. You got male and female. Okay, when a pregnancy occurs, who's leaving college? Anybody? Who's leaving college when the pregnancy occurs?
The woman.
The woman. Thank you. Okay? So you put yourself at a disadvantage when you get in a situation to be pregnant. Throughout college, I never got pregnant. Let me tell you why. I have parents who connected just about everything that I did to a monetary source. They helped me with rent when I was in college. They helped me with food. They helped me to buy food that I later gave to my other college students who did not have meal plans. If I had gotten pregnant, they would have cut off my monetary support. And as a college student, you know how important that is. I am out of college. I have never been pregnant. You have to be mindful of your choices in college. Do not put yourself in a situation to think that a young man feels a way about you when he still lives at home with his mom. Can I just say it? Do not put yourself in a way to think that a female feels a certain way about you because of how she dresses, how she looks, and what she gives up. You're going to end up in a game, and that game is going to last 18 years, and you're going to be mad. Do not put yourself in a situation to be with someone that you're really not with. That you're really not with. Okay? My parents were married. They've been married 39 and a half years, and that's all I've seen coming up. And I said, you know what? One day I want to be like that. Until that comes along, that's not a road I want to go on. Why? Because my goal is to be in Hawaii every year. That's $2,000. If I have a kid, I can't go to Hawaii no more. But see, you need child care, and that's $2,000. That's not going to happen. Think about your decisions and what you want to do. And remember, your choices. Your choices will follow you. I have classmates. I have cousins. At my last high school reunion, one of my classmates has 5 kids. 5 kids. I don't know where none of them kids came from, but she had 5 kids. The point is, she doesn't have time to go to college. She's raising kids. She doesn't have time to go on trips. She's raising kids. Hawaii is not in her view. Neither is EKU. Okay? If you're going to be here, and you're going to occupy a spot as a student, do what you came here to do. Any questions for me? Any questions? Yes?
You said something about dissertation. What is it?
My dissertation is it depends on who your advisor is. My dissertation was a 100-page document that I had to write, letting the graduate school of UK know that I have officially learned everything that you have taught me. It was 5 chapters. It took 2 years to do. 5 chapters.
You said 100 pages?
100 pages. It was 100 pages. That's the last step that you do going through any doctoral program. You can complete all the classes you want. You don't complete that dissertation, you don't get the PhD. And not only do you complete it, you got to defend it. So now that you done wrote it on paper, you got to stand up here in front of 5 people who have the actual document. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
20 to 25 minutes.
1 hour presentation. Mine was about an hour, hour and a half.
Mine was 20 to 25, thank God.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mine was 1 hour. I had to convey convince 5 people to sign one document so that I could graduate. When you're going through those type of processes, you got to know who all the players are in that situation, and you got to make nice with all of them people. All of them people. If you run into a snag, you have an attitude issue, fix it quick, because you need all 5 of them signatures to graduate. I got all 5 of them signatures. Graduated in 2004 to be here right now. Yes.
How long is your resume?
How long is my resume? Right now it's 18 pages. 18 pages, 2 years out of doctoral study. And I'm still trying to fill it up because remember, my role model has 130. And he's been in his career 30-some years. So I have work to do, but at the same token, I'm working every single time. I'm publishing, I'm researching. Yes, I do go on trips to exotic locations. I actually do go to those presentations. I don't go to all of them, but I go to some of them because I want to see what the area is like. So this past year, in January, when I went to Hawaii, I went snorkeling. Did it pan out well? No, it didn't. But I went. I went.
Was it fun?
It didn't pan out well because I just got my hair done.
I knew that was-
So I just knew that wasn't going to work out with it. But I went nonetheless. I went to a mall that had 3 levels and 7 food choice. Never seen anything like that in my lifetime. If you could have told me in 2000 that when I graduated, that 16 years later I'd be here, I wouldn't have believed you. But focus. Other questions? Other questions, concerns on anything that I said? What is your focus? Other questions? Concerns? Yes.
Okay, you said that you had 3 jobs in college. What if you, well, being a freshman, what if you have like a schedule that doesn't really fit around being able to work like that much, but you still like, even though you're a freshman, you still have like people in your family that you need to support too.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're kind of like the only person to do it, but you can't do it like that. But like you know how there's campus jobs,
Mm-hmm.
but like your schedule can't work around that.
Correct.
So like I just want to know like what was the 3 jobs that were like, and how was the shifts?
I did 3 jobs in doctoral study only. All through my other degrees, I had 1 job. My first job was at UK. I did classes like this. I taught 3 nights a week. My second job, I taught online, so I didn't have to go anywhere. I could do that from home. My third job, I went to BCTC 2 days a week. So I had a revolving schedule. And then on top of that, EKU said I'd come here and teach too. So it later became 4 jobs. I rotated that whole schedule and started saving. I said the more I save, the more I can pay down my student loans. And it worked. So in your undergrad years, I recommend working no more than 1 job because this is your foundation. If you can, see if you can get a good paying job, maybe $7, $8 an hour. And then, once you finish, go to the next level. You may not get to the top right now. I wasn't at the top in my undergrad years. I was at 515 going to 615. And I rose slowly. Question? Other question? Other question? I've been where you are. So I understand that as freshmen, you are having a great old time. But I want to tell you one thing, one last thing on sororities and fraternities. Be very, very careful. They are very time consuming. Be careful of what you compromise to get into those sororities and fraternities. I never joined a sorority or fraternity. I never wanted to. As a female, I'm just going to be honest, I don't know 20 women who can get along for a long time. I just don't know.
Can't even do it.
So you couldn't buy me on that. But at the same token, I didn't want to be a part of a group, and I may not know or agree with some of the things that they do. So I chose not to. And in the end, I've still had to work just as hard as they have, whether they joined or not. Other questions? All right. Thank you for allowing me to come, Dr. Sweat. I appreciate it.
Thank you.